Hi, Tony from all the remote things here again today, and I've got my great friend Adam Weisbart. I'm so chuffed to have him on the show. How are you, Adam?
Tony, it's great to see you. I am doing really well, especially because I'm talking to you again. It's been quite a while.
Yeah, Adam and I have a bit of a history of doing casts and things together, and had the pleasure of meeting you back at Scrum Australia, I think, quite some time ago, many moons ago. Adam, might be good if you introduce yourself to everyone.
Sure. My name is Adam Weisbart. I'm a certified Scrum trainer based out of Vashon Island off of Seattle. You might know me from a silly video about stuff bad Scrum Masters say from, I don't know, almost a decade ago. And I've been doing stuff a little bit differently over the last couple of years of the pandemic. But prior to that, I was traveling around teaching certified Scrum Master and product owner courses and doing coaching and all of that. And then things all changed for me and everybody else. So been doing some new and exciting stuff since then.
Which is really why I wanted to get you on as well, because you have moved on. You've done some amazing things since then. It has been a different shake-up and a different one. But let me mention firstly, Adam and I are what we call island brothers. I live on an island off the coast of Australia, and Adam lives on an island, so we call ourselves the Island Brothers. Anyway, moving on. Moving on. Let's talk about the shake-up and a bit of a change. And one of those parts of changing, you brought together an Agile conference, Agile virtual conference, and I wanted to talk about how that sort of came about, and how that changed what you were doing.
Yeah, of course. So, the pandemic broke out and everyone was on lockdown, at least here in the US. I don't know that you all were quite then. But
we were indeed, Adam.
Yeah. So my friends and colleagues, we were all quite sad that we were not able to see each other at conferences, not able to do like the normal stuff we had done as trainers and speakers, along with everything else that was, stressful and upsetting in the world. And since everyone was locked down at home, I thought to myself, hey, I bet I could get a few people together to speak at like a virtual conference. And now I say that and it seems like, of course, that's the thing you would do. But at the time, there weren't really any other virtual conferences happening. So back in March or May, I think March, May.
Yeah,
anyway,
we spoke to you. Yeah, that'd be
yeah.
right.
Of 2020, I reached out to some friends like Lisa Adkins, Diana Larson, Clinton Keith, and a bunch of other folks and said, hey, I think I could probably get 1,000 or so people to show up to a virtual conference. Would you be interested in speaking? I want to put together like a 5-day live event. And then everyone, to my amazement, said, yeah, I'm stuck at home. Let's do it. And then I thought, oh, what have I got myself into? Now I got to get people to show up to this virtual conference. And so I announced it via my email list and social media and such. And very quickly discovered that my problem wasn't going to be not getting enough people to show up, but rather close to the time we were launching the event in June, we had over 14,500 people sign up for our free live event. And my problems were bigger than just getting 1,000 people to show up. So I didn't look like a fool for inviting my friends to come and speak and then having no one show up. Then we had to worry about, scaling and all of that fun stuff in terms of technology, not Scrum. And we had this great 5-day live event that magically worked out through a bunch of hard work from everyone involved. But that's how it sort of came to be.
Yeah, the reason I asked you about that is not just to promote the conference, which is Agile Virtual Summit, we should say, because I didn't say what the actual conference was. But the reason I want to talk about that is because not only was that sort of the first big hit for you doing that, and I have helped run conferences myself along with my good friend Craig Smith, who we both know, and there's a lot of work in that, so hats off to you. Secondary to that, though, it changed the way you work in terms of you ended up spanning out into the Agile Mastery. And I want to talk about, because that came off the back of that conference. So talk to us a little bit about that, because that's the real meat and veg I want to get into there.
Yeah. So I guess I should just like preface this by saying before we did this, before the pandemic, if you had asked me, would you do some stuff like training or coaching or speaking remotely, I would say I'm an Agilist. You're crazy. I'm going to do it all in person. What are you talking about? And what I discovered, along with, I don't know, lots of other Agilists, including you, I think,
Yeah, definitely.
is that, well, there is some benefit certainly to being in the same location. It was not nearly as much of a benefit as I thought. And what I was really moved by and actually really surprised by was the community that we were able to build through the summit. So here's a little secret about virtual summits. I don't know if I should let people know about this, but most of them are pre-recorded. So the speakers that are speaking, they definitely spoke, but they are not speaking live, even though it sort of looks that way. And our event, because I'm crazy, I decided to live stream, which was probably a little nuts, but we did. This allowed us to like respond to things that were actually happening in the world at that time, and it made it much more sort of alive and real. And it's what built this really beautiful community that came out of this that I had no idea would happen. So from the 5-day event, we had sort of all this momentum and energy and interest. And because of that, I put together a thing called Agile Mastery, which is a membership community made up initially of people who came to the summit, but has since grown into something even bigger than that. So yeah, I was just really amazed that I don't know, I was a skeptic of this, like collaborating, connecting with people solely online and just through necessity, and it ended up being quite a fantastic thing that I never would have imagined, even when I set out to do the summit. That was just a thing to sort of connect with friends and fill some time when we were all feeling, stuck in our houses.
That's brilliant. And then that's yourself and I believe Lisa Adkins. Lisa, we had her on the cast not long ago, and you and I are both great friends with her. So you had her helping you out on that as well. Is that how it worked?
Sort of. So Agile Mastery itself is an online community away from the noise of Facebook and LinkedIn. It's a private community. Yeah. Because we have enough excitement in our lives. We don't need to create more in that respect. And it consists of a few things. The online community, weekly or so lean coffees. Once a month rather, we have live workshops. We have a speaker come in and do a workshop on a particular topic. And unlike the Agile Virtual Summit, which is mainly one way, even though there's stuff happening in the chat because there's so many people attending, Agile Mastery events are more like workshops. We do them via Zoom and have breakout rooms and all that good stuff. And we have some other content as well. Because I was putting this together, I talked with Lisa and I said, Lisa, it's the 10-year anniversary of your book. And she said, yes, I'm aware. And and I said, would you be interested in coming into Agile Mastery once or twice if I ran sort of like a book club on your fantastic book? And we got talking about that and realized that, yeah, we could do a book club, but we have something that most book clubs don't have, which is direct access to the author. And so we had a bunch of conversations around this. And what Lisa put together and I helped facilitate is 2 12-week programs based on the content of her book. And instead of a book club, it's a study and practice group. So it's guided by Lisa, facilitated sometimes by me. With each time we've had about 250 people in the program, where you have this 12-week program where you get to go really deeply into the content of Lisa's book, led by her, which is just an amazing opportunity. And so we've run a couple cohorts through that. We're going to start up another one in the near future. And it's just been an amazing thing, again, that I never would have thought would happen. And we've been able to, bring this great content to folks that often have the book sitting on their desk, but haven't opened it for a long time.
Hang on.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Signed copy.
There you go. So yeah, the study and practice group has been fantastic in that not only do you get to hear directly from Lisa and go deeper into the content, but you get to pair up with accountability buddies and have deeper conversations about that content, both on the online community that we host and one-on-one or in triads or whatnot around the content. So it's been fantastic.
No, that's fantastic. We'll make sure that gets in the show notes, and at the end of the show, we'll allow you
Thanks.
to tell us how to get in touch with all of that. I want to take a bit of a turn with that. So that's fantastic, and I know you've been doing that, but you've also found yourself coaching remote. So I want to touch a little bit of that. But just for those who don't know Adam, I've known Adam for something. He's got a cracking sense of humor. So if you get an opportunity to go to one of his workshops, I say do it, because it's always good fun. And Adam's actually a comedian. So he's a very funny man. I have to tell him that. I'm just going to pump the tires up there. But yeah, look, really good opportunity if you get a chance. So you used to do all those in person, which is why I was saying this thing about it, right? And you used to do quite a bit of physical humor and etc. How does all this translate now? You're doing it all in remote/hybrid. We'll talk about the hybrid thing in a second.
Yeah. Again, I was completely skeptical of this, and I'm a certified Scrum trainer, and initially I was like, no, do not make these courses remote. This was before we knew we were going to be on lockdown. Any of that, I was like, don't do it. It's going to ruin everything. It's going to be horrible. I was pretty vocal about that, and then of course we had really no choice but to do stuff remote. So for certified Scrum trainers and coaches and such, there's an email list that all of us are on. And I sent out an email to the list saying, hey, I apparently have a certified Scrum Master course I'm supposed to teach next week. This was on a Friday, I think. I'm relatively panicked, like you may be as well. I've not taught this class remote. I've taught other stuff remote, but not very much. I normally do stuff in person. I'm going to be at this Zoom link with this Miro board between 12 and 1 Pacific tomorrow. I'll be there for at least 15 minutes. If anyone else shows up, we can have a conversation about how the heck we do this. And I thought like a couple people might show up, but probably not. We'll see. And all of a sudden, when I logged in, there were like 30 people in the same situation I was. And so we basically just ran an open space about this. My first really real open space virtually. And we all sort of got together and figured out how the heck we were going to pull this off. To make a long story short, I went and implemented a bunch of that for the Monday and Tuesday when I was teaching the course. Sent out my, post-class survey that I do every course, thinking, oh no, I don't even want to see this. It turned out to be great. Like I definitely have improved since then over the last, 2.5 years. But it was much better than I thought it was going to be. And I was really able to recreate much of the work, or really all of the workshop that I'd done previously in small teams, because people will work in teams during the immersion and such. I was able to do that with Zoom breakout rooms and separate sections on the Miro board. It's really helped to have my co-pilot, Dan, who's on my team. He'll do all the tech stuff so I can focus on training. That's been really great. And I think the biggest difference, sort of going back to the humor part, and the thing that I miss the most and have not been able to recreate, is that when you're in the same room, you can get feedback from people. And while you can sort of get that in chat, you can't get it in terms of timing. Like you don't know if a joke is necessarily landing, that sort of thing. That could be really difficult. You're just looking into a camera the whole time. And so I missed that quite a bit. Thankfully, I taught, a version of that same class for the last decade. And so I happen to have a good idea of what will work and what won't. It would be a lot harder if I was starting, fresh during the pandemic, I think.
Are you saying you recycle your jokes?
Yes, some of them. Yes. They look very spontaneous, but they are well practiced, timed down often to the second.
Now we're letting out all the secrets.
I know. Well, they have to come to the class to be able to try to pick out which ones are impromptu and which ones are, I've said 7,000 times.
Brilliant. And so I've did quite a bit of training in the pandemic as well. And let's match some notes here. I found one of the things for participants, there was a lot more breaks, a lot more shorter bursts of content. Is that something that you came across as well? I felt the fatigue flowing through people.
Yeah, I guess one of the pluses of not getting as much feedback is I can't actually necessarily tell if they're as fatigued as if I was in the same room. And when you're in the same room, you can see if people are fidgeting and such. You don't quite have the same sense remotely. But yeah, certainly have broken up the content more. I've also taken a decent amount of content that I would normally do live, and I have them do it as pre-work because it's really just to sort of get everyone on the same page, before they jump into activities where they put that knowledge to use. And I think that's been super useful. And I know other trainers have sort of run into the same thing as well. I don't know if you're doing that, like having more pre-work than you might have previously, or asynchronous work.
Yeah, definitely, because we train guides for our remote agility framework, and definitely the async thing has become very prominent for us, where there's a bunch of clips that we've recorded even that we push out so people can just absorb at their own rate. How do you go with that? Do people actually do the homework, or do they?
That's a great question. Yes. Does everyone in a course do it? No. But I happen to know that just from the in-person experience prior to the pandemic, that even when someone shows up to the course without doing the pre-work, there are always enough people that for the group activities that sort of move stuff along. And frankly, it matches up quite well with how it will be back at work for folks, right? People have different levels of engagement and knowledge jumping into something together, and them being able to work that out together as a team is hugely valuable, regardless if it's in a class or it's, a little contrived, but still useful, or back at work. Like they're going to run into that too, for sure.
So we talked about the remote piece of it. The word out there at the moment is, of course, hybrid. My version of that is remote-ish, because I figure the minute you've got someone who's not in the room, then you're remote-ish, right?
Yeah.
Have you had that? Are you dealing with that? What's your experience in that? I think.
Well, strangely, before the pandemic, I had dealt with that a bit. Not for my certified courses, because we couldn't teach those, virtually. But I did have other private work that I would do that way. In fact, I had. Have you seen the Double robot from Double Robotics?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had one of those at a client site and would do coaching via that robot, which was entertaining for everyone involved. It was enjoyable. But since the pandemic, at least here in the US, no, while some of my clients have gone back to sort of a hybrid approach, most have not, or have and then sort of reversed it again. So to be honest, I have thus far been just booking fully remote stuff, even if sometimes they are back in the office in a hybrid approach, just because we've had the rug ripped out from under us over the last few months of like, oh yes, we're going to do this thing in person. No, we're not going to do it. No, we got to change it up again. So stuff hasn't stabilized enough, at least here, for me to feel particularly excited about lining that up.
So you're doing quite a bit of training. You'll be hearing the stories as we do, but I'm interested to hear from other people their versions of it as well. So how do you see organizations now working with this remote / hybrid and using agility? How do you see that working now? What are the problems? What are the pros, the cons that you're seeing, Adam?
Yeah, to be fair, before the pandemic, or at least, I was doing far more training than I am now, since I've been focused so much on Agile Mastery and the Agile Virtual Summit. So before, I don't know how many engagements I did a year. I did way more than I am currently doing in that space. But what have I noticed? Frankly, here's the biggest thing I've noticed. People are tired. Everyone is so tired from all the decisions we have to make just in our personal lives. And then the sort of shift of working at home and now hybrid, and then back at home and then back to hybrid. I think organizations that are going to, frankly, keep really skilled folks for the long term and sort of come out of this well will be the ones with like some grace built into them in terms of helping take care of people through all this stress, frankly, that people are going through. And I think the thing that we'll miss the most, if we're going to miss anything from the pandemic, is that having everyone remote was a bit of a blessing, right? For anyone who's worked remote on a team that were mostly co-located, it was always inequitable and difficult for almost all the teams that I worked with. There were some teams that did it very well, but most, the people that are remote are sort of like a bit of an afterthought. And so having everyone be remote really, I think, leveled the playing field. And I'm concerned that as we all go back to the office and some people stay remote, we'll sort of go back to that, even though we've had a couple of years of learning how to work really well remotely together. So I think the in between is the harder part.
Yeah, I think you're right. We have a saying here, addressing the first part of that is your work is in your home is in your work. So therefore, you have to have empathy around how you do it. You need to design for that as an organization, because it's a different way of working. And then the second part of that, that hybrid thing is exactly that. You get people in a room. I have witnessed it just recently, where people in a room were busy talking, the poor people on the screen were getting nothing, right? But I think, again, you can address that as part of the new species of remote AF, but we're not here to promote that. But the thing about that is designing purposefully and making sure that when you're facilitating that, you're facilitating it in the same way you would a remote experience.
Yeah. And to be honest, I could think of an example from actually yesterday, specifically on this. So I think for the first time in quite a while, the Scrum Alliance has hosted an in-person / also virtual Scrum gathering. It's going on right now. And the trainer and coach retreat happened yesterday. So there were a good number of folks all in the same location, and then a bunch of us that were virtual. And so the virtual folks were up on a big screen in the main room, but it was definitely more clunky than when we were all virtual or we're all there in person. So, already from my own experience as a participant, noticing the sort of the, clunkiness of that again.
And I think it's something that we're going to have to grapple with, and certainly it's not going to go away. And I see organisations, I know organisations where they're dealing with that is actually having someone designated as the facilitator no matter what in that conference. The second thing about that is to get that physical connection is to having, maybe one day out of a week where everybody's able to come in and coalesce, or one out of a fortnight or whatever it be.
Sure.
Coalesce together, those connections, and then come back. And then it sort of makes sure that connective tissue's there between the people who are in and the people who aren't, and then they don't forget each other, right?
Yep.
It's that humanity at work.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's talk about some of the other things that Adam's up to. So since I talked to you last, you have your own podcast. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So I have Agile Answers, which you can find at getagileanswers.com. And the format generally, though it changes from time to time, is folks submit questions. They'll record with their voice, record a question, and a common struggle they're having, some challenge they're having. I select some set of those, and then one per episode. They're like 10 or 15-minute episodes where I address that question with some actionable thing you can do to address whatever that challenge is. So it's not a podcast in which I'm talking to folks for, half an hour. It's where someone's like, this is the trouble or pain I'm feeling. And then I'm like, hey, try this. Here's an actionable thing for you.
Yeah. And how regularly are we releasing this?
Well, that's a great question. It started out weekly, and it is not weekly now. It's just whenever I sort of get around to recording an episode.
I set him up for that one because we were talking about that previously. And for those who know me, I've been on a long-running podcast of my own, and I know the struggles and the timing of getting out on a regular basis. So it was a little bit of a dig.
That's how you and I originally met, through your podcast, actually.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
Look, so the other thing, you've got a bunch of, and this is not to what do we say, promote your merchandise, but one of my favorite artifacts that I own in the Agile type environment is something that Adam gave me, which is a Vanilla Ice as an Agilist shirt. So
yeah.
So you talk about the stuff that you've got there, because I think people really enjoy some of the humor that's built into those. All I can say is stop, collaborate, listen.
Yeah. So that was an outcome of a talk, one of the first talks I gave that I've now given a lot. It's my Agile Anti-Patterns talk. And one of the tools in the toolbox is the Vanilla Ice rule. In the talk, I explained that Vanilla Ice was an Agilist before being Agile was popular, or I guess while Vanilla Ice was still popular. And people generally don't believe me. And then I play the song, which goes on to say, stop, collaborate, and listen. And And I use that as an example of how a team, for example, could go about doing agile estimation together without killing each other. And so the outcome of this was, I've got this talk, and then I had some illustrations done for it of Vanilla Ice, and that ended up being a shirt, which now you proudly own. So I have that shirt. I have a couple other shirts. I made a few shirts called Agile Threads. I have one of Tools of the Trade, which is like blue tape, Sharpies, and Post-its with a cup of coffee, I think, and a few other things. And I think the way you and I originally met on your podcast was around that time I had Agile retrospective fortune cookies.
Yeah, I was just going to mention those. Yes, you're right. I actually got to eat your cookies.
Yeah. I heard you all talking about them, and I think I sent you all a pack of them. So this was years and years ago, and I put open-ended questions for retrospectives in some fortune cookies that I had made, and just as sort of a labor of love, ended up shipping those all over the world to folks who ordered them. The pandemic put an end to that. We're not currently shipping them, sadly. Also, people aren't getting together to run retrospectives in person very much these days. But it was great. We sold, I don't know, thousands and thousands of fortune cookies, and I lost money on every box and was super happy to do it. It was fun.
You also get the Agile Anti-Pattern cards, and I think with the Agile Ad-libs as well, right?
Yeah. So let's see. Agile Anti-Pattern cards were sort of part of the basis of that talk, and they were basically quotes that you might hear around the office that at first blush you think are maybe agile, but they're actually anti-patterns. They're things that could get in the way of an agile initiative. There are things like the VP pulled someone off our team this sprint again, or our boss told us what items to commit to for the backlog, etc. Things that you may have heard as a new agilist and not realize they would hurt you. And the idea was if we captured these, and there's about 25 of them, if we captured these little phrases and people got familiar with them, they could identify them before they ever knew they were actually a problem, right? If this deck are things that could hurt you, if you sort of read through them from time to time, you might be able to identify them more quickly out in the wild. Originally, I made the cards thinking I would hand them out to people as demerits as they said them. And I did that once, and it did not go well because nobody likes being told they're doing something that might hurt others, even if it's well-meaning. And so I stopped doing that. But initially I thought, yeah, these would be great demerits. Don't hand out demerits. It's a bad idea.
Okay, I'll take note of that one. I won't walk into that trap. No, yes. So it was interesting. You had all of those things. And I bring them up because it's a pattern of stuff that you create and you put out. The one I want to ask you about, because I never got around to it in any other casts. So you said at the top of the show that we might know you from that video. Tell me how that came about, and why haven't you done another one?
So if we rewind back to that time, I forget the year, we could, I guess, look at the YouTube video and see. There was very briefly a meme that was going around that was like, stuff is not the right word, but you can replace it with a word that I'm not sure I can say on your podcast. Stuff, blah, blah, blah says, right? And it was super popular at the time. There were tens, if not more, of these videos of different things like, stuff or bleep, millennials say, and bleep, right? All these different topics. And so I was like, oh, we should do stuff bad Scrum Masters say. That'll be hilarious. Which I'll tell you about in a moment. But I will preface this by saying barely anyone remembers this meme now. So now I'm just known for this video that has an expletive in the title, which I didn't realize at the time. If I had known it was going to have the longevity it does, I don't know. So how did it come about? I just thought it would be funny. I'd been doing a lot of improv at the time. And I know this was before I was a Scrum trainer, but I knew a fair number of trainers and other Agilists. Folks like Chris Sims is there, Petri is there, a few other folks. And I borrowed the office that I was working at the time on a weekend. In fact, the CTO of the company and his wife were in the video as well. And I just got folks together. I was like, hey, let's get together for like 4 hours or so, because that's all I could afford in terms of hiring this videographer, because I wasn't a Scrum trainer at the time, or like a consultant. I was just a guy who had a job. I was like, I'll just do it for fun. It'll be like a little passion project of mine. And basically, we all sat down. I had a bunch of ideas of things that bad Scrum masters might say. And we also did some brainstorming around that and created a bunch of Post-its, shockingly, with these things on them. Found a really great videographer who made us look good and did really fantastic editing. And I put this thing together just for fun. And then I forgot about it a little bit. Like, I put it up on YouTube, and I don't know, a couple months passed. I might have glanced at it a couple times, but I wasn't like paying a lot of attention. And then I went to my first Agile conference. And I got to the hotel late. The venue was at the hotel, like it was in the same spot. And I was walking to my room at like midnight, and 4 guys who were quite inebriated said, "It's him!" And then they all ran towards me. I didn't know what was going on. And I was like, they're going to beat the crap out of me. What's happening? And they came and they all hugged me. And I was like, hey, what's going on? And you're the guy from the video. And I was like, what are you talking about? And you're like, the bad Scrum Master video. I was like, yes, that is me. How do you? And I pulled it up on YouTube, and there had been thousands and thousands of views of this thing. And a lot of people at this conference had seen it. I didn't realize it had been going so well.
Brilliant.
So yeah, it was just something I did for fun. And I don't think I will ever do something with more like higher ROI than that silly video that I put together. It's been great. And why have I not done another? Well, because that one turned out so well. I have not been like moved enough to do another one that I think will be as good or better. And everyone's scared of doing their sophomore album, I think, is the thing. Like, that one went so well without me meaning to, that I just like, yeah, maybe I should just leave on a high note. We'll see.
I think I've got to give you a coaching moment here. You got to imbue the Maverick mindset now.
Okay.
It's going to be better than the original Top Gun, right?
It's possible. It's possible. But I've come to like do other adjacent things. But yeah, it's shown up. People have watched it a ton on YouTube. It's like hundreds of thousands of views, and then I know that it's made its way into lots of folks' Scrum or Agile courses in general.
I'll own up to that, Adam. I have used it, so yeah, and I appreciate it greatly. That's why I bring it up. So, look, we're getting really close to the end of our time. What I do want to do is just ask you, how can people get involved with these things that we're talking about? The summit, the mastery, even working with yourself.
Yeah, you would think I'd have one central place people could go to that I could just plug right now, but I don't. So here's what they can do. If they want to find out more about the summit, of which we have run, let's see how many we've run. We've run 6 at this point. We've had over 74 sessions. We've had like 80 plus hours worth of content. It's been fantastic. Every one of the events is free to watch live. You can upgrade to an all access pass that gives you access to all the videos and a bunch of bonuses afterwards, but you're not required to do that. You can just attend for free. We have both the 5-day big event that we do once a year. We just finished that in May, and it's usually in May or June. And then we have some bite-size events. They're 1-day events that are like multi-track, parallel tracks happening on the same day. We had earlier this year the coaching edition, where Lisa Adkins gave the opening and closing keynote. And then we had 6 other fantastic sessions happening during the day. So they can find out more about that at agilevirtualsummit.com. If you opt in there, you'll get notified when the next event starts. We don't have that scheduled yet, but we'll certainly have one. To find out more about Agile Mastery, it's sort of in stealth mode at the time. Like, if you go to agilemastery.com, you'll just see the logo, and you have to already be a member to log in. If folks are interested in joining or finding out more, they can shoot me an email at adam@agilemastery.com. And I'd be happy to give them some more info, including, I didn't mention this before, but we host at least, usually more, but at least 2 open space events a year as well as part of Agile Mastery. That's been a lot of fun. And I'm about to start up my weekly personal retrospectives. So I'll be facilitating retrospectives for anyone who joins the the call, where we'll get together in little accountability buddy groups, and we'll run personal retrospectives on our own work for the week. So I'm quite looking forward to that. And then the shirts and other stuff that you mentioned, if they go to weisbart.com, they can find out more about that stuff as well.
Brilliant. Look, it's been fantastic having you on. Thanks for spending the time with us. If you're listening to this and you really enjoyed it, don't forget to like, subscribe, all those sorts of things we need you to do so that we can keep this going. Join our community, the Remote AF community. Just go to remoteaf.co, click the community button, join us. There's a whole bunch of like-minded people who are really looking into remote, hybrid, how we can work better. Adam, fantastic to have you again on all the remote things.
Thank you so much. It is so good to see you. I'm excited to hear about all the awesome stuff you're doing.
Brilliant. Thank you again, everyone.